I think a lot of the old songs uh, are simple, I guess, but it'd be easy to just sit there and make it up, and then people pick it up and start using it. And we're going to be in First Kings. Well, we do hit Second Chronicles midway through it here. We're at Second Chronicles, about lesson 10. Okay, this lesson is about Solomon's preparation for and construction of the first stationary temple for the God of Israel. So, they used to have the tabernacles and stuff, but they was in tents, and they moved them around. And we're talking about the first stationary. It'd be like a church. The tent sanctuary, called the tabernacle, was a portable house of worship, but the temple was built by Solomon, also known as Solomon's Temple. Well, that'd be sort of easy to come up with, wouldn't it? Solomon built it in Solomon's Temple. It was a lavishly furnished permanent structure in Jerusalem. If the king is doing something, it ain't going to be plain. It's going to be fancy, in our words, I guess. The ancient Israelites were taught that God is present all the time, everywhere, and cannot be confined to one location. Well, that was sort of right. God is present all the time and everywhere, but he can be in one location or he cannot be. It don't matter. He can be anywhere, right? Okay. However, like the tabernacle before it, the temple was understood by the Israelites to be the place where God's presence with Israel was made known to his worshiping people. As such, the temple was regarded as God's house. That's sort of what we do now, isn't it? God's house. This is God's house. And people, and anywhere I've ever went to church, probably I doubt if out of 100%, 5% would name I go to the Evangel Family Worship Center. That's usually not what they say. You want everybody always said for all 40 years I've been coming here? I go to Pastor Hagee's church. Well, it's not his church or anybody's church anywhere. It's God's house. That's exactly right. Wherever you're at, wherever the church is, you're God's house. All right. The official history of Israel began with Abraham as 2100 BC, whom the Jews regard as the first Jew. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob built altars to the Lord at many places in Canaan. Back then they built them, and they usually went to the high place, I guess thinking they can get closer to God. Now you can be up on the mountain, or you can be in the valley where you're at with your altar. It don't matter. That part they was talking about is right. God is there. He's in the valley. He's in the mountain. He's everywhere. He can be in your house. You say, well, I can't get to church. Well, okay, if you can't, he'll be at he can be at your house. He can be right there. You say, well, I ain't got nobody here. Well, you can do your own singing. All of us can sing, well, to an extent. Yeah, we can tolerate our own singing if we're at home. I mean, that's. That's what counts. If you're praising the Lord, that's exactly what counts. And, we're probably sure this is the answer on that when we're at home. We probably don't do much of that. Now, I play that Bose thing I've got, and I've got my music playing all the time, all night long. And if I fall off to sleep, I've got that gospel music playing. And it does something. It does something for me. It does. One thing, I know all the songs. Well, I know most of them. If Dodie sings one, I pretty well probably doesn't know it. I know the words to it, or most of them anyway.
And you people have been singing with a lot of my ancient songs.
Oh, I know the ancient songs too. Yeah, those songs that you pull up, I can sing most of them too. That's a good thing, I guess. Okay, let's see. God commanded Moses to build the tabernacle, a portable tent sanctuary. That was used by the ancient Israelites as a house of worship for almost 500 years, that's the way they went, with just a tent. And, wonder if all we had was a tent, wonder how many people would come all the time. They say, my Lord, all they got's a tent up there. And if it's cold, it'd be cold in that tent. If it rains and blows it, you get wet. Well, that's what they had for 500 years. Solomon's temple lasted almost 400 years. So not quite as long, but almost, until it was destroyed by the Babylonians. The post-captivity temple built in Jerusalem lasted 586 years. So all of them went almost 500 years. This temple was enclosed in Herod's temple in the time of Jesus. All right. Now, let's see now. Megan's going to start. Now, Megan, 1 Kings, chapter 5. And we're going to split these verses up because there's a little bit too many. I want you to do 1 through 6. And then Miss Melinda, you'll pick it up, 1 Kings chapter 5, and you'll do 7 through 12. You're going to do sort of the half of what hers is. And let's see, Diane would be next. 1 Kings chapter 5, 13 through 18. Okay. And let's see here, Sherry, you're going to be 1 Kings chapter 6, 11 through 13. And let's see here. All right, let's see, Brooks right behind you. Okay, you're on, Brooks going to do 2 Chronicles, chapter 5. No, chapter 5. Yeah, we don't do chapter 3. I don't know, we must skip through that. Okay, that's like 2 chapters. No, we won't be reading it. I'll go over that. You're going to read 2 Chronicles chapter 5, do 1 through 5. And then, Darlene, I can get you to do 2 Chronicles chapter 5, 6 through 10. And let's see here. Okay, Willie, you're next. 2 Chronicles chapter 5, 11 through 12. And Mike, you get 2 Chronicles chapter 5, 13 through 14. Okay, the golden text at the beginning of our lesson is, the word of the Lord came to Solomon, saying, concerning this house which thou art in building, if thou wilt walk in my statutes and execute my judgments, keep all my commandments, walk in them, then will I perform my word with thee, which I spake unto David thy father. Now, that's saying a lot. Well, we won't get into it right now, but did all that work out for them? How'd that work out for them? Not too good. That's exactly right. Okay. All right. Have you ever wondered why we Christians call our houses of worship churches? And that's what we do. It's what we do, right? In the ancient world, they built the Israelites and idolatrous Gentiles called their places of worship temples. But for the most part, Christians have called their houses of worship churches. And that's true. Of course, we know a local church is really the people. That's what I was talking about a minute ago. We know a local church is really the people who make up the church, and for this reason, Christians began calling the places where Christians gather to worship churches. And that's y'all agree with that, don't you? Yeah, because that's what people do. And in fact, the building in which a congregation of Christian worships is identified with the church that gathers there. So that's what I was talking about a minute ago. This right here would be identified with our name, but the church is us, the people. If it's 25, 50, or 150, it's the people that make the church. Okay. All right. Let's see. Megan, 1 Kings chapter 5.
And Hiram king of Tyre sent his servants unto Solomon, for he had heard that they had anointed him king in the room of his father, for Hiram was ever a lover of David. And Solomon sent to Hiram, saying, Thou knowest how that David my father could not build an house unto the name of the Lord his God for the wars which were about him on every side, until the Lord put them under the soles of his feet. But now the Lord my God hath given me rest on every side, so that there is neither adversary nor evil occurring. And behold, I purpose to build a house unto the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord spoke unto David my father, saying, Thy son, whom I will set up on thy throne in thy room, he shall build a house unto my name. Now therefore command thou that they hew me cedar trees out of Lebanon, and my servants shall be with thy servants until thee. Will I give hire for thy servants according to all that thou shalt appoint, for thou knowest that there is not among us any that can skill to hew timber like unto the Sidonians.
Okay, so they needed, back then they used cedar wood when they built things because it didn't rot as good. So that was one of their big things on. And then they used fir trees. And how much of that would they need? Quite a bit, because Solomon is the king and he's going big time. He ain't going little time, right? Right. Okay, now, Miss Melinda, you're going to finish hers up with 7 through 12.
Okay. And it came to pass when Hiram heard the words of Solomon, that he rejoiced greatly, and said, Blessed be the Lord this day, which hath given unto David a wise son over this great people. And Hiram sent unto Solomon, saying, I have considered the things which thou sentest to me for, and I will do all thy desire concerning timber of cedar, and concerning timber of fir. My servant shall bring them down from Lebanon until the sea, and I will convey them by sea in floats until the place that thou shalt appoint me, and will cause them to be discharged there, and thou shalt receive them, and thou shalt accomplish my desire in the giving food for my household. So Hiram gave Solomon cedar trees and fir trees according to all he desired. And Solomon gave Hiram 20,000 measures of wheat for food to his household, and 20 measures of pure oil. Thus gave Solomon to Hiram year by year. And the Lord gave Solomon wisdom as he promised him, and there was peace between Hiram and Solomon, and they two made a league together.
See, he couldn't build this tabernacle if he was fighting any of the factions around him. So he had to have peace. It said it did. And once he got peace, he needed help on the stuff he had to take to build a thing. I mean, because that's King Solomon's preparations for constructing the first temple included a deal he struck with the King Hiram of Tyre. This city or state was a Mediterranean seaport and the political capital of the nation of Phoenicia, located west of northern Israel. Following a visit with Solomon in Jerusalem by government envoys sent by Hiram, Solomon sent a message to Hiram requesting his assistance in supplying timber for building his temple. See, he worked out a deal to get timber, get the cedar trees and the fir trees. That's what he's looking for. Hiram agreed to send to Solomon timber of cedar and timber of fir. Now we're talking about a lot. It was a big lot of trees. Wood's excellent for building and resistant to rot. And see, the king didn't want just a building built. He wanted a fantastic building and one that would last. He could have got trees that wasn't the cedar and stuff, but it could have ended up rotting on him. Of course, as part of the arrangement, Solomon compensated Hiram for the labor of his workers, and also on occasion, Solomon and Hiram contracted a treaty. Even Hiram, a gentle king, recognized the wisdom in Solomon was from the Lord. King David had got the vision on the building of the temple, but then he passed that down to Solomon. Then Solomon picked it up, and now, you know how a lot of these kings are, they do what they want to. But he went on with what the king had wanted on building the temple, the plan. And they had plans back then, believe it or not. I don't guess they had engineers, but they did have plans. Okay, let's see, who's next? Diane's next. Okay, 1 Kings chapter 5, verse 13.
And King Solomon raised a levy out of all of Israel, and the levy was 30,000 men. And he sent them to Lebanon, 10,000 a month by horses. A month they were in Lebanon, and 2 months at home. And Adronanim was over the levy. And Solomon had 70,010 that bare burdens, and 70,000 ewes in the mountains. Beside the chief of Solomon's officers, which were over the work, 3,300 which ruled over the people that wrought in the work. And the king demanded that they brought great stones, costly stones, and huge stones to lay the foundation of the house. And Solomon's builders and Hiram's builders did hew them, and the stone quarries. So they prepared timber and stones to build the house.
All right. To obtain the laborers needed to harvest and transport timber for building the temple, King Solomon, he raised the levy. That is, he drafted 30,000 men from all over Israel. In shifts, they were required to cut and gather timber in the hills and mountains of Lebanon for 4 months out of each year. Now, they worked them. When they didn't work, they worked when they did it. Okay, he had the 30,000 men. Then, in addition, there were 70,000 workers for hauling the burdens. So, and 80,000 workers. Now, it's adding up here. 30,000, 70,000, then 80,000. 80,000 workers who cut and gathered stones from the mountains in Lebanon. It said that they cut these stones. Now, with what tools they used, giant stones to build what we're talking about. I've seen on the Discovery Channel how today they've still got places built, and all they do is somehow got them fit, nothing to hold them together. And in other words, their precision was better than a diamond maker or cutter. And once they got it in there, that's all they had to do. Yeah, where'd they come up with somebody that could do all that? I mean, they couldn't do it today. I don't think you could go out and do what they did then, now. That's okay, Solomon also he had 30,000, 70,000, 80,000. And that's 180, right? Okay, then he employed 3,300 foremen. Well, it'd take a lot of bosses to supervise that bunch, right? The stone cutters and the haulers they brought from Lebanon, great stones, that's the way, and costly stones, that's the ones I was talking about, and huge stones to lay for the foundation of the temple. So once they got their foundation laid, they didn't have to do, it would just go in like fitting a puzzle, like a crossword puzzle. It goes in, that's the way these stones would have went. And how they got them from one place to the other. How'd they get stuff like that? Always amazed me that they could do that, and this stuff would weigh tons. The rock would tons, and they can get it from one place to another. And with the big equipment today, it'd be hard for them to do. So Solomon's builders and Hiram's builders, so they was working sort of side by side there. Skilled craftsmen, they worked together, preparing the temple and stones for the building of the temple. So it was a whole big joint effort. But when you work together with anybody, we could have something we're going to do, and two could be doing this, two can be doing that, and two over here and two over there. But if you put everybody together as a team, you can get more done. And if the team follows direction and what they're supposed to do. I saw on the, I don't know if it's Discovery Channel, but if you live up in Alaska, they get the dogs that'll pull you on the sleds, and that's how they travel on the snow. And they had a whole new crew of dogs that hadn't really done that. And Instead of jumping up and taking off, they was trying to go sideways and chase squirrels, and they have to get them trained. They have to, hey, here's what, we're not chasing squirrels, we gotta pull the sled. And they learn that after they're taught that. And that's the way we are. I mean, we can do after we're taught. Yeah, when I started going to church, I can tell you how much I knew about what you do. You see at 0, that's what I knew. Didn't know. I just knew, well, if I was going to learn, I've always sat on the front wherever I was at. And why? Well, I just want to be up here working here and see what's going on. And the closer you sit on the front, see, you don't see nothing that's happening behind you, distractions and that kind of stuff. And people say, did you see so-and-so? I said, well, no, I didn't. I said, it's hard to see them looking, I'm looking this way and they're behind me. So that don't work like that. Okay, wise preparations for building the temple was undertaken by both David and Solomon. Often in life, people want to go on to whatever it is they wish to accomplish without preparation. You ever try that? You're going to do something, but you ain't prepared. You don't get yourself laid out. It don't work out too good. You got to have your plan, and that's if you go by the seat of your pants, a lot of times I can get you. Well, you mess up and you go back and do it again, all that kind of stuff. Brother Mike?
I guess I'm not sure which, I may have heard it from you or Pastor Hayes or somebody, but one of the first things I remember learning when I started church was a scripture, and it is in the Bible. It says, I can't quote it exact, but I'm used to probably hearing it preached, not so much reading it. It says, where there is no vision, the people perish.
Yeah. Well, you got to have your vision, because if you ain't got the vision, you'll go down the tubes. And looks like we have to have a vision that if we press towards the mark, the Bible says, for the prize of the high calling of God, which is in Christ Jesus. So we got that vision. If I press towards that mark, I'll get the prize. What is the prize? Everlasting life for us, all of us. It don't matter who we are. Okay. But the fact is, wise preparation is not an option, but a necessity. There we go. It ain't really an option, it's a necessity, right? For significant accomplishments, God did not send his eternally begotten Son into the world without centuries of preparation for his coming. I never thought of it like that. But I guess he planned it all out for what he was going to do for us, right? And he's got the plan. He knows what he's doing. We who follow Christ and seek to serve him and minister to others, we must not bypass preparation necessary to serve Christ faithfully and minister to others effectively. So there you go. We got to serve him faithfully. Got to be faithful. Then we can minister to others effectively. If you go, all right, say you're going to testify to somebody, and you get talking to them, and they ask you a question. It might be a simple question, and you sit there and you can't answer it. Well, you got to prepare yourself to maybe know these things. And most of the stuff somebody would ask you, you would know. And sometimes we have to maybe do a little study and get up to some of it. And but don't ever just make something up. I mean, if you don't know, say, I can find that out and I'll get right back with you or something. I mean, I'll just always tell them the truth. All right, who's next? Okay, Sherry's got 1 Kings, chapter 6, 2 verses, or 11 through 13. That might be 3 verses.
And the word of the Lord came to Solomon, saying, concerning this house which thou art in building, if thou walk in my statutes, and execute my judgments, and keep all my commandments, to walk in them, then I will perform my word with thee, which I spake unto David thy father. And I will dwell among the children of Israel, and will not forsake my people of Israel.
So God laid out a little plan there of what you had to do, and did Solomon do it? Now, he'd done it for a while, but he got weary in doing good. I always couldn't figure that out. Somebody get weary in doing good. I can see getting weary of doing bad. But anyway, early during the temple building project, King Solomon received a sobering message from God about the promise he had made to David, saying, "Thine house and thy kingdom shall be established forever before thee. Thy throne shall be established forever." That was a promise that went to David. This promise meant that through David, a dynasty of kings would be established, from whom eventually the Messiah would come, and his everlasting kingdom would be established. Now that's saying something. The word of the Lord came to Solomon, confirming the same promise to him. However, the fulfillment of the promise about the continuing dynasty of David depended on faithful obedience by Solomon and his successors. So the promise was good, just all the people, the kings after David, they had to do certain things. They had to walk in his word and live right. That's the way it is with us today. I mean, we want to walk with him, walk in his service, and be faithful. Everybody, I think, wants to do that. Sometimes they have trouble doing that, but I think everybody really wants to. You just have to have a big enough want to, I guess. The promise of God is passed on to Solomon as related to his building of the temple. In that, before God made the promise to David about an everlasting kingdom, God revealed to David that his son would build a house for my name, and I was established the throne of his kingdom forever. So God told David that. And as it turned out, after David and Solomon, a dynasty of 19 kings. A lot of kings. All direct descendants of David and Solomon were rulers over the kingdom of Judah for 344 years. Now, I don't know how much that averages out each. I ain't the mathematician in the group. How many years would that be if you equaled it out? Brooke, how many you got there? Calculator out. Well, we got 19 kings, 344 years. Of course, they all would be on different years, but. Oh, okay. See, some of them were short. That's short back then. Really, what changed is when they died. Some longer and some shorter. Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't the word.
Where Solomon, they were rulers over the kingdom of Judah for 344 years. That ended in 586 BC with the destruction of the kingdom of Judah by the Babylonians. The purpose of God in confirming to Solomon the promise he made to David was to encourage Solomon to remain faithful to God. You think God maybe knew what the steps that Solomon was going to take? Yeah, he knows what we're going to do. He can't make us do maybe the right thing, but he knows what we're supposed to do, and he'll sort of maybe nudge us. Solomon, to remain faithful to God, tragically, Solomon failed to remain faithful to God. He just couldn't help himself, I guess, could he? He had everything at his, I guess he had anything and everything you wanted, and that might not be so good for somebody. I could, if that's the case, it might be hard to do the right thing. Tragically, Solomon failed to remain faithful to God. And centuries later, the kingdom of the dynasty of the kings that proceeded from David and Solomon ended because most of these kings and the citizens of Judah was unfaithful to God. Now, how about that now? Most of the kings, and we know that most of the kings there's more bad kings than good kings. And then the people that's under them, which would be people like us, they couldn't be faithful neither. I guess, well, look, he's doing that. Well, I guess I can do the same thing. And people do that. Now, whether right or wrong, the people look at the preacher and they'll say, well, if he can do that, I can do that. That's why the preacher don't need to be doing that, whatever that is. I mean, because people, and people watch, you know, you say, I'm not the preacher. Okay. Somebody is watching you. Everybody is being watched by somebody. It might be somebody where you work. It might be your neighbor. And they know what you're supposed to be. And whether you're that, maybe not, but they're watching you. You know, I was, when I was working, and we used to have church on Thursday night over at the old church. And I would work up just in time for me to drive from my office to the church. And this night, I was a few minutes later than I normally was, and the other guy that was the office manager, he was in there, and he wasn't, he spoke. He was doing his stuff, I was doing mine. But when I went over 3 or 4 minutes from my leaving time, he said, don't you have church tonight? I said, well, yeah, I'm getting ready to go. I said, you want to go with me? And then he didn't want to talk after, and I got stuff to do. But yeah, he knew exactly in 3 minutes, he knew I was late for going. And because that's what I'm talking about. People are watching you. And they may not be saying nothing, but they're watching what you do, how you act, and where you go, all that kind of stuff. So all these things matter in a Christian life. The condition for the forever perpetuation of the earthly kingdom of the dynasty of David and Solomon, it was not met. So it wasn't met like it was supposed to be. So it was not met. Nevertheless, God did send Jesus. Oh boy, we got a real lifeline there, didn't we? They sent Jesus the Messiah, the Son of David, to establish His everlasting kingdom, which, as He said, is not of this world. Okay, so we got a lifeline that it don't matter. We go to He can pull us out of whatever we're in. It don't matter how bad we are, what we've done, none of that stuff. If we'll come to Him, and it's so simple to believe in thine heart and repent with your mouth and go to Him. That's all. It's a simple plan to get you started, and that's what I had to do. I had to do the simple plan. Then I had to get up sitting on a church pew somewhere. Then I had to learn how this thing operated. And see, a lot of people have been raised up in church maybe all their life. And whether you did the right thing, you've heard the right thing for all these years, and you know what you're supposed to do, right? See, I didn't know all that. I had to learn. I had to learn as I went. And I was a quick learner, though. I paid attention. And that's what we're supposed to do. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the description of the temple. These 2 chapters tell where Solomon's temple was built, when the construction of the temple began. Okay, it was built at Jerusalem on Mount Moriah. That's where it was built. What the dimensions of the temple were, see, this wasn't just go up and throw me up a tabernacle. It's saying, it's giving the dimensions and everything. So the dimensions of the temple were the materials of what it was made, not just make one, it told what to use to make it. Just like God told Noah exactly how to build that ark. Because they never need a boat. They never need a fishing boat back then. Because it never rained. They didn't need that. And when he started building this giant ark, people made fun of him. And he worked on it for a long time. What was it, 120 years? And people probably went down there daily and mocked him and made fun. Look at the crazy preacher out here building something that ain't ever been needed and ain't going to be used until the rains came. And then they're beating on the, God put the door in at the top. And God closed the door, not Noah. Look, and then so Noah couldn't let nobody in if he tried. Because God closed the door. And then I can just hear people banging on that ark saying, let us in. Hey, no, it wasn't me. I I never said a word against you. I can hear people say, hey, it wasn't me. You got room for one more? And there wasn't no room in there because they went too long. So that's the way, we've got our opportunities every day that we live to get ourselves right with God. And some people say, well, when I get things straightened out, I'm going to come. Well, you ain't ever going to get things straightened out. That don't work like that. You just don't do it. In ourselves, we can't get things straight. We might think we can, but not really. That's why the Bible says today's the day of salvation. Now is the accepted time. So when is the right time? Today, whatever day that is. And that's the time to come to God. And you don't, then you don't have to worry about it. And we live each day as it comes. Too many people worry about what's going to happen next month. Let's take today first. And then if we make it through today, we'll take care of tomorrow. And then, because at one time or another, our last day will come. You say, well, not me. Oh, yeah. I had a guy tell me, he said, I'm sort of going to live forever. I said, really? I said, let me get my tape recorder and get this testimony. I said, so how long is forever? And he got talking to me. He was talking about how healthy he was doing, and that's good. And he was going to live to be 120. Then he downplayed it to 120, I think. I said, well, no, that'd be good. You'd probably break a record for somebody in the United States. And he was up there in age. And, what it was, when I was selling insurance, he didn't need no insurance. Well, his wife called me back, and maybe the next week, and she said, you ain't going to believe what happened. I said, what? And she said, well, Carl was delivering something over on the mountain over like in North Carolina. And somebody hit him and knocked him almost over the cliff of one of them mountains. He didn't, but it almost did. Shook him up so bad. Then all of a sudden, he figured maybe he ain't going, because I said, well, I'm glad you're doing right, and eating good and all that stuff, but what, you're on the road, can you control what other people do? And then this guy almost kills him. And he said, maybe I do need to get some insurance. I said, well, everybody does. And he actually, they bought a policy on him. And oh Lord, now he got the fear of God put in him when that car about knocked him off the mountain. And sometimes it might take. See, in his case, it took something like that. And everybody's case, it don't necessarily got to be that. But now, he was there when it happened, and I guess he ought to know. Okay. The Solomon began building the temple in the 4th year of his reign, and it was completed in 7 years. This building was so big and everything to get the materials. It took 7 years, and had these people working. These laborers, they worked all the time. They'd work. Let's see, how was it? They'd work a month on and a month off, something like that. A month on and 2 months off. So I guess they worked on so hard in a month, then they need 2 months off. To get over it.
That was time for the family.
Yeah, to get back. Well, they would have needed stuff at work done at their own home.
Well, they wanted to say, Solomon wanted them to know that family's first.
Well, family is first. People put a lot of times other things before family, but family is first. After God, we'll get that turned around. God's first, and then family. It was built on Mount Moriah, the site designated for the temple by King David. See, King David's plan told him exactly where to build it and everything. Yeah, that's where you need to put it. When he built an altar there and offered sacrifices to God, it's generally believed that Mount Moriah is the place where Abraham offered Isaac to God. Remember that? When God told him to take him, and really it was going to be a sacrifice, and his only son, and he gets him up and takes him, and his son said, where's the sacrifice? And he said, well, God will provide. Well, he thought he had him hauling around on the other donkey. But when they got there, and he had his son to build the altar, get the fire fixed and all that, and Abraham was getting ready to go through it, and all of a sudden, over stuck in the thorns, I guess, or the bushes, was a little lamb. And God provided a sacrifice. And he just said, God will do it when God did do it. And, God will do these things for us too, if we'd just trust him. If we, have you seen, they do this, I don't know what they call it, like a trust exercise, where people go, people that work together, and you're supposed to close your eyes and fall backwards, and they're going to catch you. That's easier said than done. And how many of the people that are working with you would let you fall? And that's why I don't know how good that works. I ain't ever done it. But, once you close your eyes, it throws you off of what you're doing and all that. And then you think, well, they're not going to catch me. And, they probably would, but you got to get the trust factor that they will catch you. Assuming a cubit was approximately 18 inches, so that'd be 1.5 feet, okay? The Temple of Solomon was about 90 feet in length, 30 feet in width, and 45 feet high. Pretty good height. The temple had 2,700 square feet of floor space. And that don't sound like a lot today, but I guess it was a whole lot back then. That'd be a pretty good size. That would be the size of a small church. I don't know about a small church being that size. 2,700 feet's pretty good size.
How many hundred feet is this church?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you. Well, this would be less than that. This would.
Say it's 90 feet long, at least.
Yeah, but I don't think it's got 2,700 square feet. Is what I'm getting at. I don't believe so. I could be wrong. It said this would be the size of a small church building by today's standards. The temple was designed after the tabernacle built by Moses, with the holy place for the priest measuring 30 by 60 feet, and they had the Holy of Holies. They had the holy place and the Holy of Holies back then. For the Ark of the Covenant, it was measuring 30 by 30 feet. Only the high priest of Israel could enter the Holy of Holies. So when they had all this separated back then, and the Holy of Holies, the high priest went in once a year for the atonements of all the sins of everybody. And they tied a rope around his leg. You say, why'd they do that? Just in case he had sin in his life, he'd be struck dead. And I've thought about that. How many preachers would maybe say, I don't know, let that go in. I'm sick today. I don't know how many would go that didn't have sin in their life. They did. They have to drag them out. Oh, mercy, that right there. Now that's governing by the tough scale. Wouldn't you agree? I think I would. Once a year for the Day of Atonement. In front of the temple in the inner courtyard was a brass altar about 30 feet by 30 feet. Now, a brass altar, 30 feet by 30 feet, and 15 feet high. Man. Also located nearby was a laver to hold cleansing water from the sort of go through the ritual of sort of cleansing herself, before they go in. Now, we don't have to do that today, right? Now, if you wanted to cleanse yourself before you went to pray, there wasn't nothing wrong with that, but you don't have to do that. There was also a larger outer courtyard, but the Bible does not tell the dimensions of either the inner or outer courtyard. I guess it was sort of big for the multitudes to get in there. The holy place inside the temple was for the priest only, and the inner courtyard in front of the temple is likely for the priests, the Levites, and male Israelites. The outer courtyard is for all the people. So they had it sectioned off. Oh, and when they built this, they were told, and that's a whole other story. They told what kind of furs and stuff to put on the walls. It wasn't just throw up a thing. They were told exactly the everything to do. They had a plan for that. God did, and they had to go to that. The entire temple, its priest, its posts, its beams, its walls, its doors, not priest. I'm going to get new glasses. How many times has that happened here? I've got where I don't read as good now, and I've been to the eye doctor. I just ain't got my new glasses ordered, and it's definitely time, because the priest ain't made out of wood. You got the wrong word there. I've seen that. So the entire temple, its beams, its posts, its walls and doors is made of wood from cedar and fir trees, because that was the plan that they put out. Then all this was plated with gold. So all that then was plated with gold. See, the king was doing this, remember? He ain't going, if he's going big. In addition to this, the temple was lavishly decorated with artwork and precious stones, and with gold and silver furnishings. You think what they built it out of cedar. I always liked anything built with cedar. I've stayed in cabins down at the Smokies that they got cedar inside, like in their inside it. And, it looks and smells. I always liked that. And I guess they done it because it lasts longer. Till they tore it down and built a big high rise. That's what they done at the cabins I stayed in. It's likely that all the gold, silver, and precious stones in Solomon's temple would be worth about 10 billion American dollars. Is that not a lot? That's a lot to decorate. I mean, if you built the thing, you could have built it without any of that. You could have saved that $10 billion, but now he was the king, and he wanted it fixed up big and fancy. The central truth for this lesson says meticulous instructions from God require meticulous acts of obedience. You agree with that? If God gives you a plan and it's meticulous, he wants you to be meticulous about what you're doing with it, right? He don't want you to halfway do it. You know what I'm talking about. Like if you work somewhere and they give you something and you halfway do what they tell you to do, well, you're not really doing what they tell you to do. You're halfway doing it. And they don't want it halfway done. They want it done right. Before he died, King David, he passed on to Solomon the design plans for the temple. We talked about that. Before David died, that's what he did. He gave me, here's the plans now. Here's what you do, where to put it and all that, and how to build it. According to the biblical record, it appears that Solomon followed these directions exactly. So he didn't halfway do it. He done it exactly, and that's what he's supposed to done. The Lord expects of us complete, not partial obedience. And do you believe that? Yeah. I mean, he just wants us to follow his plan. Saul, the first king of Israel, was rejected by God for deciding it was okay to partially obey God. Oh my! You mean you can't halfway obey God? Well, you can, but that ain't the way to go. To willfully or carelessly reject a single aspect of God's directives is to reject his authority as a whole. If we willfully or carelessly reject a single aspect of God's directives, is to reject his authority as a whole. What about that now? So halfway won't get it. No. You got to go straight on. Who's next? Okay, Brooke, you're on 2 Chronicles chapter 5. Oh, we're running out of time here.
Thus all the work that Solomon made for the house of the Lord was finished. And Solomon brought in all the things that David his father had dedicated, and the silver and the gold and all the instruments put he among the treasures of the house of God. Then Solomon assembled the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes, the chiefs of the fathers of the children of Israel, unto Jerusalem, to bring up the ark of the covenant of the Lord out of the city of David, which is Zion. Wherefore all the men of Israel assembled themselves unto the king in the feast which was in the 7th month. And all the elders of Israel came, and the Levites took up the ark. And they brought up the ark and the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. These did the priest and the Levites bring up.
Okay, see, Darlene, you read the, yeah, 6 through 10.
Also King Solomon and all his congregation of Israel that were assembled unto him before the ark sacrificed sheep and oxen, which could not be told nor numbered for multitude. And the priest brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord unto his place, to the oracle of the house, into the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubims. For the cherubims spread forth their wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves of the ark, that the ends of the staves were seen from the ark before the oracle, but they were not seen without. And there it is unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables which Moses put therein at Oreb, when the Lord made a covenant with the children of Israel when they came out of Egypt.
So when they got it completed, the building, all their gold and silver and all that stuff, everything but one thing that needed to be installed in it. And they sacrificed so many animals they couldn't even count them. Now, how many would that be? Would that not be a lot? The king wanted so much. Oh man, he done some sacrificing. With the completion of the temple's construction, only one more furnishing needed to be installed: the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. This, along with the subsequent dedication ceremony in chapter 6 through 7, was the climatic event in the temple's building project. King Solomon convened people to Israel from all over Israel. So when he put the Ark of the Covenant in, he had people come from all over Israel. Like, oh, they had a big deal. Everybody showed up. He wanted all the, everybody. He wanted all the people to come. And he wanted, he wanted the elders, the local government leaders, the tribal heads, and family patriarchs. So he was getting all the people that was sort of over stuff. He wanted them to see what was going on. The time of this event was the annual Festival of Tabernacles, a celebration of God's provision for the Israelites during their journey from Egypt to Canaan. How long was they on that journey? Yeah, think about that, 40 years. The installation of the ark in the temple was accompanied by sacrificed sheep and oxen, which could not be told nor numbered for multitude. Now, that's a lot, because they had people that could count, but they had so many that lost count. That'd be a lot. The Ark of the Covenant was brought by the Levites in a grand procession, so it come in a big way. From the tent, it was always in a tent before, in which David had placed the ark in Jerusalem, to the temple on Mount Moriah. So here it was going where David had said it should be built. He told where it should be built, and he's going to have it fixed. The Levites were the tribe of Israel given the duty. See, they all had a certain job and of what they were doing. Okay, the Levites were the tribe of Israel given the duty of temple upkeep. See, their job was to keep things straight at the temple. And everybody has some kind of job. You say, what do I do? Well, I don't know, but maybe you sing, all kinds of jobs. But the Israelites were the tribe of Israel given the duty of the temple upkeep, and the priest of Israel, who were descendants of Aaron. Okay, the brother of Moses came from that tribe. After the ark arrived in the inner courtyard of the temple, the highest ranking priest of Israel carried it into the temple to the holy place. So they brought it into the holy place and into the Holy of Holies. So it went through, they went through their process to get it done there. Okay. The highest ranking priest of Israel carried it into the temple to the holy place and into the Holy of Holies, also called the most holy place. That's what it was. The ancient Israelites regarded the Holy of Holies in the temple as God's earthly throne room. So they counted that a very, very holy place, and it was. The Holy of Holies in the temple is God's earthly throne room, and the gold-plated chest called the Ark of the Covenant. They still hunting that Ark of the Covenant now. You got stolen and stuff back then. Yeah, Mike.
I've heard the Ethiopians have.
Yeah, they ain't got it. They got an imitation.
They're trying to protect it, you know.
They're protecting it. The reason they won't let nobody see it, there's hundreds of them things in Ethiopia of duplicates. And that's why they don't think it's there. It's hard telling what happened to it over all them years. If anybody could steal it and get the gold off of it, well, Indiana Jones couldn't get a hold of it. Well, he couldn't. What was that? Yeah, anybody that looked at it, when they opened it up, it killed them. But but Indiana Jones, he couldn't tame it. I'm telling it the way it was on Indiana Jones. Yeah. I think a lot of people would stand back when they messed with it. Okay, the ancient Israelites regarded the Holy of Holies in the temple as God's earthly throne room. Yeah. And the gold-plated chest called the Ark of the Covenant, located there as God's earthly throne. The Ark contained the 2 stone tablets, okay, with the 10 Commandments. Now, when I used to go preach some over at the Weber City Church of God, Raymond Hammonds had the 10 Commandments, and I mean so big that I could even read it up on the wall. And every service they went over the 10 Commandments. And a lot of people say, well, why did they do it? I said, well, to myself, I said, he's doing it till when everybody starts doing all that, they'll quit reading it. And that's like the thing we were talking about the preacher. He comes and preaches something, and then next Sunday he preaches the same thing. He preaches that like 2 or 3 weeks. They said, what are you doing? He said, well, when I get everybody following that, we'll do something else. And that's sort of a hard thing to do. Yeah, but they had the 10 Commandments was in there, and so was that an important thing, the 10 Commandments? It was in the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah, and they protected that, and it's a real thing today for us too. It's important. It's important to live an upright life, to live without reproach. You say, who you talking about? I'm talking about all of us. And people won't be saying, everybody's heard this. They're supposed to be a Christian. How many times you heard that? He's supposed to be a preacher. How many times you heard that? Well, why are they saying that? It's most likely the way they're doing, the way they're living. So it does matter where we go, what we do, and how we act. Yes. And who we hang out with. Yes. You hang with the wrong people, you get in trouble. You agree with that? Absolutely. And we went over, Mike. We'll have to try to do that next time. Our time's over. So. Yeah, it's important, but we got to sort of hold to the time frame here. Well, see, it was. We could have got to all that if we'd started on time. We didn't do that, so we'll see if we can correct that maybe next week. Let's give Jesus a hand clap. It's not for you, Dodie. It's for Jesus.